And tonight we're even elevating the game a little bit more. We have upper elementary through middle school. And our first presenter is Aaron Grossman, who is having a spectacularly fun, stress-free evening at his home tonight with his internet not liking him very much, but we're rolling with it. Aaron is a fourth grade teacher in Reno, Nevada, and he was the 2017 Teacher of the Year. So, please feel free to put like, those pop-it things or champagne or something to you, my friend. 2017 Teacher of the Year and the Nevada 2018 Teacher of the Year finalist. And I joke, but that actually is really incredibly impressive. I see some poppy things. Thank you, sir. Aaron co-created the website www.just2teachers.com, and I will put that in the comment section once he gets kicking, and where he posts free instructional resources for novice to seasoned educators. And it's all evidence and research-based. And you can also learn from Aaron about what his students are up to at www.room360.org. And I will put that in the comment section as well, so that you can follow him as he influences us. So my friend, whenever you're ready.
And thank you very much for that profound introduction, which I may or may not have written and shared with you at some point. So I'm Aaron Grossman, fourth grade teacher. Bear with, I'm hopeful that the internet is stable enough that we can get through the first 20 minutes before I kick it off to Kier, who is an infinitely more entertaining and profound educator. So humbly titled, this is Fluency, it's good. And what I want to begin with is sort of that old sort of throwback to an anticipatory set, in which in just a moment, I'm going to throw something on the screen. And I want you to give yourself about 30 seconds to read through it. And one, just track how far did you get, and then monitor your own comprehension. So I will advance that slide. And again, you're going to get 30 seconds to think through how far did you get and what did you notice about while you understood the text itself. All right, that was your 30 seconds. And so again, you're asking yourself, did you understand what you read? And then again, how many words were you able to read in that 30 seconds? We're going to do something similar, but again, same thing. How far did you get? How well did you comprehend what was put in front of you? 30 seconds to do the same thing with this text. All right. And that was your 30 seconds. And those two big questions, how far did you get? How was your comprehension? And although we can't make it to breakout rooms, I can guess or infer, one, that you didn't get as far with the first text as you did with the second text. And moreover, I'm going to guess that you comprehended at a much higher level the second text than you did the first text. And so that fits well with my theme, which is fluency. It turns out it's a pretty good thing for any number of reasons. And so what I want to walk you through tonight is really just bridging a brief understanding of the research and then show you what it looks like in my classroom. And I did see that Dr. Chase Young is on, so throughout, if I forget to say it 15 times, here's the 16th time to say it. I'm stealing a lot of work this evening from Dr. Chase Young. So he is an inspiration, and he's changed and transformed what's happening in my classroom. So largely speaking, when we think about teaching fluency, I'm going to guess that you are very familiar with these options here, which is we either model it with our students, we do some kind of choral read, echo read, we do buddy reading with our students. We have kids get text, you sit side by side with another student. We rig that in some way with it's either homogeneous or heterogeneous. We do some sentence level work. And what I really want to dial in this evening on is number 4, this idea of deep reading or repeated reading. And I'm going to explain and try to convince you that reader's theater seems to be such an incredible thing to bring into our classroom. And again, I will walk you through why. So largely speaking, I used to do this all the time, wide reading. So we get a text, I ask my kids to silently read it, then they partner read it, then we ask some kind of comprehension question, we keep them accountable to the text itself. And I'm stealing this slide from Dr. Tim Rosinski, and you can see that although wide reading will get some a little push with that text itself, it's not as generalizable as we would hope. So just because I'm doing a lot of wide fluency instruction with my students doesn't necessarily mean over time it's as efficient as another outcome might be. If I compare this wide reading, which I'm going to guess that many of you do, to this repeated reading, you'll see that here's text A, and that as I continue to read text A over and over and over again, my comprehension goes up markedly. But notice something else. When I move from text A to text B, that's generalizable now, and I'm going to be more successful with text B. And when I move from text B to text C, I'm going to be more successful with text C. So this idea of repeated reading not just makes me stronger with text A, but it's going to benefit me when I have new experiences with some new text, be it text B, C, D, E, etc. And again, if you want to see all of this come to life, this is Tim Rosinski, and here's a YouTube link where he can walk you through all the research. So if we're going to bring repeated reading into our classroom, if we're sold on this idea, I've had most success using a reader's theater script, and I won't break that down too much for you, but I think we all understand with reader's theater, kids get a part, they're reading something akin to a script, and the way I share it with my kids is on Monday, they get a script. There are a variety of ways in which I choose who gets what script, and you can see that right there. Sometimes I'm rigging it, so I'm choosing for them. Sometimes they get to choose the script. And on that Monday, they simply silently read through that script. So they're familiar with the script. Then on Tuesday, the kids will get into groups with the same
We're gonna
script.
get her soon. She's in here somewhere.
So I will put on Tuesday, they find the kids with the same script, and at that point, they negotiate what roles they'll have with that. And then on Wednesday, Thursday, we've got more opportunities to read the same script, but also what unlocks on Wednesday and Thursday is the idea of prosody. So we're not just reading quickly and accurately at this point. Now we're reading with much greater expression, appropriate pace, and much stronger smoothness. And then on Friday, there's a variety of ways you can do this, but we're going to finally present all the work we've done on that script. And again, I will walk you through different opportunities, but largely speaking, either we're sharing that script with just our classmates, or we may farm some of the students out to other classrooms where they can share some of those scripts. So that's going to be you, Kata. So because of my internet, Kata is going to generously assist as I show you what this looks like in my classroom. And then periodically, I'm going to scream at Kata to hit pause so that I can talk over and annotate some of this experience for you. So if you'll go ahead and hit pause right there, Kata. So if you notice, I've written the script titles up on the board, and next to each script is a parenthetical. That's the number of parts in each script. So I think this was filmed in late April. So obviously this is muscle memory for the students. So they know to recognize a parenthetical, and that if it says 3, that only 3 names would be listed under the script. But this is first thing Monday morning. So as the kids are coming back, they're returning classroom materials, and then they're signing up for a script. All right, go ahead, Kata. All right, so you've signed up for a script. When I tell you the title of your script, you're going to come up here. Remember, we're just reading all the way through the script. When you're done reading through the entire script, go ahead and put this back into your classroom folder. If you are goods and services, go ahead and grab your script. If you are needs versus wants, come up here and grab your script. And again, all you're doing is reading all the way through. All right, go ahead and pause there, Kata. So not profound what you just saw there, which is Monday, they've read through the script, they've put away the script, but I want you to keep in your pocket the idea they at least are familiar with what they're reading. And then I want you to compare and contrast that with maybe some readers theater you've done in your own classroom, where typically we just hand everything to the kids and they have to negotiate parts before they're even familiar with what they're going to be reading. Moreover, if you saw those scripts, they're front and back. In general, they're somewhere between 450, 550 words, which then affords an opportunity to pretty quickly read through that silently, even if you happen to be a pretty disfluent reader. All right, go ahead. So it's Tuesday. You're going to take out your script. You're going to find the people that you're reading with. When you found those people, first negotiate the parts, then highlight your part, and then go ahead and read through the entire script once or twice. Rochambeau.
Okay, so I'm the morsel of whatever guy, but I want to change his name to
If you change a name, make sure you've changed it all the way throughout so it doesn't confuse the listener. All right, let's pause right there. What's not obvious in the video is the kids did highlight their parts, which is just another scaffold into what they're about to read. And then in this particular case, the names of the people in the script were not particularly important to me. So if they want to overwrite that, they're welcome to do so. But we'll talk about that in phasing, which is the kids gain a little bit more ownership of the scripts themselves. All right, let's keep going.
Our capital resource is always machines. Not always. Capital resources can be anything. Is the producer? Exactly. And it doesn't stop there.
Nicely done, you guys.
Needs or wants. Now we know. Choose wisely wherever you go.
All right, let's pause right there. So that hints at the idea of on Wednesday and Thursday, now we're reading with greater prosody. It becomes a little bit more performative for the students, but we're getting to that idea of repeated reading where kids are much more quick, much more accurate, reading with much greater expression, smoothness, and appropriate pace. And I'll add one more item, which is if it's not really obvious, we filmed all of this in one day. So my kids do have access to clean clothing, but in this particular case, we just decided to do Monday through Friday in one sitting. All right, and let's see the performance. Go ahead, Kata.
My script is called The Big Idea. What's an entrepreneur? My name is Ravi and I'll be playing Nico.
My name is Ensley and I'll be playing narrator.
My name is Danny and I'll be playing Reese.
My name is Dawn and I'll be playing Jules. Today we're learning about entrepreneurs, people who have...
All right, you can go ahead and hit stop share for me, Kata. So that's the general construct of me taking, again, full attribution to Dr. Chase Young. I think he did this with second grade classrooms. This is what it looks like with my intermediate grade students, but always sort of matching what I'm doing to the research, repeated reading in this case. And then I'm also concurrently doing a couple other things. So I'll go back to share. And then, so I mentioned phases. So This construct, you can imagine, kids tolerance for boredom these days is wildly different than it might have been just a decade ago. Okay, I'm good. So here's what I've done, over time, what have I done with these scripts? So in phase one, you saw what I just did, which is introduce this free reading protocol, share what prosody is with my students. I'm going to talk about this idea of always doing two things at once and why, again, I continue to use Reader's Theater script as late in the year as I do. And then just a couple of notes in terms of if you're looking about evaluating, there's a fabulous rubric from Dr. Tim Brzezinski you can find here, and then all these other scripts that I've developed are available at Just Two Teachers. So that's phase one. And phase two, that's when I start iterating a whole bunch, which is students start not just performing for us, but start moving into other classrooms. They start doing peer evaluations. So they're looking for those elements of prosody. They're gauging whether kids are being successful with that. I also borrowed a template from Lauren Prophet, who happens to be on this Zoom this evening. So once with a template, they start writing their own scripts. So rather than me always creating them, or rather generative AI, they start writing them. We find common topics, things that are relevant to our classroom, and they start writing scripts. And again, they get to that performative nature. And then just a strategy, if you're unfamiliar with when kids are writing their own scripts, make sure you're passing the pen so kids are always writing their own parts. And then this very last idea in phase three, students are now creating their own scripts without templates. One of my favorite things to do now is we will collect student writing from the primary classrooms, and they'll turn those into scripts. And of course, we can bring other people, including families, in so they can see that performative nature and what kids are doing with reading fluency. And then this is my raison d'etre, the two things at once idea, which is these reader theater scripts, they're not just about nurturing reading fluency with my students, but rather they're also about getting to content. And I'll show you a couple of examples on the website, Just Two Teachers. So here's Just Two Teachers. If I click on this frame right here, these are the Reader's Theater scripts. Largely speaking, I've taught third, fourth, and fifth grade. So some of you know these, Aesop Fables and Grimm's Fairy Tales being more of a thing that you might do in a third grade classroom. Mixtures and Solutions would be fifth grade. Fourth grade in my state happens to be Nevada State History. In the video, you saw economic scripts, so I'm going to click right there. You'll see the number of parts that are available, what subject or content you're addressing. And if I click on it, so not only are my kids now developing reading fluency, but they're either reinforcing content, building background knowledge, doing some kind of retrieval practice if this happens to be something we did some time ago. And then I'm also going to highlight the second part, which is they're reasonably short. So this is how we get to 1 or 2 readings every single day, Monday through Thursday, before that final practice on Friday, and then a final presentation. And again, just highlighting, there are a whole host of things here. So if you're familiar with US history, here's the American Revolution, all stuff that I know that our fifth grade teachers know. So we can do this as early as September, why not? It's not like I'm giving away the plot to the American Revolution. And so we can build that background knowledge. So when we finally engage in that content, kids have something to build from, or just reverse. We covered it. I don't want them to forget. And now we do a Reader's Theater script around that. So that's the notion of two things at once. And then lastly, just some selfish plugs. There are several other videos of my kids doing the Reader's Theater. So you can just go to Just Two Teachers, click on that YouTube link, and you'll find that information. All right. And now I kick it off to Kier, who has stable internet.
Before we do that, any questions for Mr. Grossman? We can also do this at the end, but we'll spare you a second, Kier.
Yeah, Aaron, I have to tell you, first of all, like, who likes free stuff more than teachers? But that resource with your Reader's Theater, that is really just, that's like educational gold. It's fantastic. Fluency is good. Let's just stick with that. I really, as a first grade teacher, it is just fantastic for me to see where these kids head to when they get to you. That was fantastic. And Dr. Young, you mentioned how, all teachers like to steal from each other. I always say we learn from each other and then we plagiarize and customize from each other. So again, thank you, Aaron. And even if you think of a question down the road, continue to pop them into the chat, whether it's for Aaron or for Kier. Speaking of Kier, he's been waiting quietly as the headliner. No, 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 no. Equal talents, equal talents. So Kier has been in education for 10 years. He currently teaches seventh grade literacy at Henderson Hopkins Partnership School in Baltimore, Maryland, as part of the Baltimore City Public Schools. We have another Teacher of the Year among us. Hello. You guys, I got to step up my game. He won the Teacher of the Year in 2019, and he is immersed in literacy development, curriculum development, and professional development. His next point was that he also likes gummy snacks and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I became a fan of yours on the Knowledge Matters campaign. I think that's a really important thing to throw out there, that you were instrumental in that incredibly influential podcast. So in any event, less me, more you.
Well, I think I will say that was super fun having Karen and a few others come in very early on in 2019 to come see me and the kids in action, and just why knowledge building is super important. Even though this is not about knowledge building, it is sort of picking up the baton from Aaron that Fluency really also is just an extension of knowledge building. It's a great tool to have, and it's not just a tool, it's really going to take your students up. I think that Fluency, at least for me, because I teach seventh grade, it's a great equity tool for some of my students. So when I'm thinking about the demographics of my students, where my students are with their reading ability, I mean, they're in seventh grade. I do have some students who are not reading on grade level, maybe even 4 or more grades below. But I think the magic of this year has been seeing how improved their reading is, and we're having a lot of fun with this. And to Aaron's point, I really enjoy Reader Theater scripts. These have been really fun to see the students get into it. I should probably have an after-school theater club, because we've got some really great actors. Although in seventh grade, I'm unsure if they're acting or if the big feelings are true or not. But anyways, if you know, you know. Okay, less about my kids and their big feelings, and let's get the show on the road, huh? Okay, blah blah blah. Oh. Hmm. Okay, I hope this works, but it says share sound only and not optimized for video. So, okay, I got the thumbs up. So, okay. Um, Here's one of the things that I really enjoy. I guess it's kind of really nerdy, so it's probably why I'm here. Anyways, I really like showing students the standard, and we probably could have done a pop quiz, but I'd be really interested just for a little interaction in the chat. How many of you knew that the last time the word fluency shows up in the Common Core standards was fifth grade? And if it's you, you can just put me in the chat. If you didn't know, it's okay to just put IDK, I didn't know. But I would just be really interested in knowing, just in the chat, be honest, how many of you truly knew that the last time the word fluency shows up in the Common Core standards is fifth grade? This to me is a little fascinating because I did not know that. I do have the Common Core app on my phone. I promise I have friends, plural, but I really do like the Common Core app. And it was fascinating to me that when I was looking through the app, I was like, whoa, fluency stopped showing up after fifth grade. And I think that that's kind of interesting. Now, if you look at what some of the other standards say, like they're clearly implying fluency, but to really sort of see it here was fascinating. So, reading foundational skills, fifth grade, fourth anchor standard, right? So it says read with sufficient accuracy and fluency to support comprehension. Read with accuracy, appropriate rate, and expression. And here is something that is very fascinating to me, right? It's this very last one, right? We're certainly talking about this at the end, right? Where it's talking about use context to self-correct or confirm recognition. So one of the things that I found really interesting when reading the standard was the bottom part. And totally appreciate that comment in the chat about like there's a revised standard. So have them up to 8th grade. So that's awesome. Um, this using context to self-correct is super fascinating because I don't know about you all, but my kids are really kind of hell-bent sometimes, especially when we're reading out loud, to want to always be correct. Like they don't want to make mistakes. And it's so fascinating because I will slow my kids down and I'll say, hey, you know what? Let's just go back to the standard, right? The standard is kind of like where we're supposed to be. It's what excellence looks like, and it's what we're working toward. You're allowed to go back and be like, oh, actually, this was supposed to be uh, led instead of lead. Or, it's just kind of fascinating when students are slowing down that instead of maybe that. I don't know, we had to sign a contract versus something contracting, right? And I love that the standard is including this idea that you can use context to self-correct or to confirm word recognition. So fluency, the way that I explain it, and a little bit of this, I believe, is like specific praise. I want to say that that could be Carol Dweck. Don't quote me on that, but just this idea that it's okay not to be perfect. So one of the things that I really like to encourage my students is that it's okay not to be perfect when it comes to fluency, because you can self-correct. So just think when you're in your classroom and how we're addressing students, how we're correcting, how we're positively narrating, continue to build that culture that some mistakes are okay because the standard is implying that you can, oh, you know what? You're right. That's contract, not contract. I can go back. Okay. So one of the things that, my school partners with Achievement Network, so we do a lot with Fluency. As you'll see that I've sort of Frankenstein some of these slides together based on mini PDs that I do at my school, and really just understanding, and Aaron talked a lot about this as well, that we're really trying to move from word recognition, especially in the 7th grade. It is really dispiriting to me when I hear other middle school teachers say, you know what, I'm not the learning to read grade. Like, that's not my job. But I do think that if we all can just dedicate a little bit of time in our day to fluency, you're going to see students grow leaps and bounds. David Lieben talks about this. Student achievement partners are really big on this, that just doing echo reads, choral reads, right? Having kids syllabicate just a little bit. And you're going to see kind of how I incorporate this in my class. It really is maybe an extra 5 minutes out of my day. And some of us can spare that, some of us can't. And if you can't, that's okay. Let's go back to the objective. Let's choral read the objective. Let's pull out some multi-syllable words and let's get kids syllabicating those, right? Identifying vowel sounds and spelling and what letters and sounds are in those individual vowel sounds. And I think that that's still helpful in 7th grade. And you'll see some of the videos of my 7th graders doing this in practice. So here is a slide, sort of modified. I can assure you, actually way more boring. So thank you, Kata, for these. But one of the things that we do is kind of similar to what Aaron was talking about with his scripts for Reader's Theater, going through the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So this is what we do. My students will come in. They have a little bit of a passage to write down. This is huge, by the way. Students do not write something this big. But because my students were exposed to Bud Not Buddy last year, this is how I like starting my year with fluency, because they're like, oh my God, Mr. K, you know about Bud Not Buddy? We did this with Miss Francis. So the background knowledge is already there. There's a great place for us to jump off with the fluency. So I will give the students an excerpt of something that is always sort of content related, or it could also just be kind of silly to kind of get them working on prosody. Um, they will write the example in their notebook. I am really not big on typing unless there's a true accommodation needed for typing. I am a believer in just handwriting things. And again, there's some really good research about the importance of still taking notes the old-fashioned way. After they're done with step one, students will move on to identifying important words that really stand out to them. You'll see in a later video that we kind of get into sentence level deconstruction, right? Identifying, verbs, adverbs, adjectives, right? And how that's going to help us with our comprehension. But I've also modified step two to include important punctuation marks or important phrases. And today, even after MCAP, we actually did sort of a vocabulary and fluency lesson, and it was just really cool to see students working together to write down the sort of excerpt or the example, and then to move right into step two. Oh, Mr. K, I noticed that there's an exclamation point. Mr. K, oh, I noticed that, the first several words are in all caps. So like that must be super important. And to sort of see that metacognitive process play out, students articulating this to each other, and then they're super excited about it. I'm like, this is why we do it, right? Kids are getting excited about fluency in seventh grade and not worried about, six, seven, or something that they saw on TikTok. Like, I won today because they were talking about fluency. Then we move on to step three, right? I do think that it's important to kind of slow things down and like, okay, if you're familiar with wit and wisdom, this is sort of like our organized stage, right? A lot of our kids need to make sure that we can organize what's going on and literally just ask the question, hey, what's happening? Right? Very basic main idea question. What's going on? After we answer that and we kind of get on the same page, now we're going to talk about annotating and we're going to annotate for fluency. Now, here's a good moment to sort of say pause, right? How many of you all, and again, you can add this to the chat if it's you, maybe a plus if you do this, maybe a minus if you don't. But how many of you have your kids annotate for fluency, which to me is very different than annotating for comprehension, right? Leaving notes in the margin to help you understand what you're doing. How many of you have used annotating before, but to help your kids improve their reading? Okay. See a couple people in chat, so some minuses, right, or some no's. Here's how we do this, right? Now I'm very clear and transparent. I like to be very transparent with my students. We have 5 rights at our school. We don't have rules, we have rights instead to empower our students. Right 5 is you have a right to hear and tell the truth, right? So one of the things that I like telling my students is here's what this is. There's metacognition, right? And it's thinking about our thinking. And we can take notes in the margin. I literally show them old books of mine from college, books that I'm currently reading, and Mr. K has marked up the page. But these marks, these notes that he's leaving to himself, right? The underlines, the highlights, these aren't to help Mr. K with how he's supposed to read it. It's to help Mr. K remember what he read. So it's important for me to continually push kids to think about what they are reading, but also how it should be read. Because notice that once we sort of get students to a fuller capacity with comprehension, you'll notice that your students sort of aren't sounding like robots anymore. And it's really important when we start looking at those prongs of fluency. Is a student really fluent if they're not reading with prosody based on their understanding of what's going on? If someone's excited, why do you sound like you just lost all your money as opposed to gaining a lot of money? So it's something to think about. So our fluency annotation symbols are pretty simple. Students are using up and down arrows to indicate different vocal inflections, right? Students might be using smiley faces to indicate, oh, that's a happy emotion, a sad emotion. They might use an in for a neutral tone, especially if there's dialogue versus narration. To remember, I shouldn't read the narration in the same voice that I did for the character for the dialogue. And I think that that's a really important point for students. So thanks to those in the chat for being brave and vulnerable to let us know if this is something you've done or if it's a good idea. Now, less of me, more my kids.
So these are just our fluency annotation symbols, right? What symbols are going to help us with how we should be reading? Excellent. Little slash there. We should probably pause. Dialogue's over. Zoe.
So if we pause this really quick, notice how I just chose something that was really silly. Hello, Juan stuttered, as he awaited the suspense behind the door. Who's there? He finally got out, trembling with fear. So again, this is just something that I wrote. You could easily just kind of have AI do something for you, but this is something that I just wrote on my own. But notice how right here, if you can kind of follow the cursor, how students have already put some slashes because they notice, oh, there's a punctuation mark here. I need to remember and use this fluency annotation symbol slash pause. I should wait here after the question mark. Notice how they've already sort of boxed in their important words, right? That was step 2, right? Identifying those important words and phrases. And then students are now here into step 4. Oh, I want to go down. There's a little down arrow here, right? Another down arrow here. Let's go.
And again, I still like those down arrows. Think about those verbs, stuttered, trembling. Love it. Cameron? There we go. Who can help us with main idea? It's really important to know what we're reading so that we know how to read it. Tehran, what's going on here? We got some dialogue, stuttered, suspense, trembling with fear. Well, how do you know? Class, do we agree? Simple yes, no. Okay.
Well, hey, there you have it. Sure.
So these are just our fluent.
Oh, for crying out loud. Okay. Another video here. This time, totally different classes, my class last year. But notice here how, if you can see here, right, we've got this up arrow. We've also been working on scoops, right? If there are phrases that we should be saying in one breath. And again, we're just going to kind of listen in on kids as they have a conversation about fluency annotations. Jeremiah, volume to 11. I try to keep it on HDMI4 this time. Thanks. Okay, share out time. Where and why did we change our voice? I just answered the questions about Isaiah. Where would I want to change my voice and why? Yeah, yes, I do agree with that. But what about just this one sentence right here, though? Claire?
I would raise my voice at they turn their eyes because that's the action.
Okay, yeah, so that phrase, they turn their eyes, right? So that is where we might want to change our voice. Perfect. Where else, Alyssa?
Steady now because that's dialogue.
Study now, dialogue, dream.
I was gonna say that, but also broke upon them.
Broke upon them. Love it, love it. Anything else?
Mr. Good.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just going to get the whole class a bunch out because I don't have my phone. Javon.
The men were silent.
Loved it. Does anybody have, like, hey, based on your annotations, does anybody feel comfortable reading this aloud for the class? See where we can get some good stuff here. Morgan.
Steady now, said the captain. The men were silent. They turned their eyes from the shore and waited. Then the next wave broke upon them.
By the way, is this an impact on everyday life?
Size and where your slashes might be. Scoops for one breath. That was perfect. Okay. So, Paige, then Jameer.
Steady now, said the captain. The men were silent. They turned their eyes from the shore and waited. Then the next wave broke upon them.
Perfect. Lovely. I can hear the emotion. Jameer.
Steady now, said the captain.
Good.
The men were silent. They turned their eyes from the shore and waited. Then the next wave broke upon them.
Thank you, Zoom. I'm muted. Was muted. That's fun. I thought I would have learned. What I really appreciate is that students are really willing and invested to slow down, and they almost appreciate not just sentence level analysis and deconstruction, but like they really do want to get better. I'm not a teacher for whom someone like I think that, oh, syllabicating and clapping out is beneath my kid, so I'm just not going to do it. Slowing down to annotate is beneath my kid, so I'm just not going to do it. I recognize that there's a need and that this can really help unlock a lot of access for students, so I do it. And it really doesn't take that long. Like, yes, you see in these clips that these are something that we're really honing on, but in that last video, step one really is just that. We'll come in on a Monday, we'll write the example, I'll echo read as a class. Tuesday, we'll move on to identifying important words and phrases, right? Like these are really small things that are always in my slides. Now, there are some days, you know, because we're in state testing that we'll do all 4 steps. But I think that when we start thinking about how practical some of this is, we can really start implementing it. So I didn't want to alienate any of our math girlies out there or math guys, but the phrase is funnier if I say girly, so I'm not meaning not to misgender anybody. But for the math girlies out there, I do want to let you know that we have an acronym at Henderson Hopkins. It's called CUB. And for CUB, when students are working on this CUB, this really is having students circle any numbers, underline the question, and box in keywords. Now, you might be thinking, why are we talking about math? Because one, I don't want to lie to anybody on Twitter or X because I did say that this would be for all content. So mostly I just want to cover my you know what. But also, I think it's important once we start involving all content areas. It shouldn't just be the science teacher, right? It shouldn't just be the social studies history teacher, the literacy teacher, humanities. Math can incorporate this too. And if your states are like mine and students are doing constructed responses on their math MCAP test and they're reading word problems, why are students getting some math problems incorrect? Well, they need more access to words and they need more access to fluency, which can lead to higher comprehension, which, wait for it, leads to understanding the math problem. It's not just the numbers. So students are going to circle any numbers that they see. So we have our numbers, right? Students might also understand that they need to underline the question. How many total kilometers does Carlos walk on Saturday and Sunday? Finally, there are any key words that students might need to know. Right. So again, you can still do this with other content areas. And I just think that the more sort of lockstep and in sync that we can do this, it's going to be really helpful. If you got the in sync reference, uh, move your clip. Here we go. Now, we've also got some fluency annotation symbols, that I've done before. If students are typing, they can use slashes and bolds and underlines. And this is if we're doing this via Google Doc. And again, we ask the same question: how does understanding what you read affect how you read? But I want to show us another video of students in action.
Earlier, talking about urgency in this table group, right? When you're reading, you read with urgency based on what's happening. Notice how I have a little like half circle, like a little scoop. That scoop lets me know I'm going to say that phrase "and the water" in one breath. I'm not pausing to take a breath. So sometimes you really need to use these symbols. Up arrows, these are the words I'm going to emphasize. So in your table groups, you're going to take one very quick minute. What do you notice about my, Mr. K's annotations? How will that help my fluency? Off you go.
So notice, right, like again, this is an excerpt from Stephen Crane's The Open Boat. And again, we just pointed out just like sentence level deconstruction here, but it's really going to help us read this with far greater prosody.
What do you notice about my annotations? How will it help? So suddenly tells you
I think the tone is like very climactic or like something kind of scary you might see.
And I've got a few more videos to show, but just wanted to kind of, again, just a bird's eye view of students having that conversation and really kind of getting in depth. Morgan right here has said something really fascinating when we were reading this quote. I'm forgetting the person who said it, but just fate is like a small sandstorm that keeps changing directions. You turn direction, but the sandstorm chases you. Over and over, you play this out like some ominous dance with death. We've done this quote so many times. I think darn near got it memorized. But I say that to say Morgan's comprehension was so high level that when we really started unpacking that quote, Morgan finally came to the realization and told her classmates, guys, if you want to nail prosody, maybe we should start reading it like the person who's going through this sandstorm. And I was like, that might be the best answer I've heard a student say in terms of giving her classmates feedback on how to nail prosody. So I just wanted to, again, show you what syllabicating and clapping out looks like in my classroom. It's super easy to do. In fact, today we even took a sort of syllable test, if you will. I read the word for students, elusive, and they had to let me know where those vowel sounds were. But this was not that, but this is an example of students working together to do some syllabication. What's really great is Tylia right here. Her fluency has really just gone through the roof this year. I'm just super proud of her and the work that she's really put in. Mason over here, can't see him behind Janala's, but like Mason's done a tremendous job. Mason does have an IEP and he's on the spectrum, but he puts in so much effort. He really has improved with his fluency and just done an amazing job. And again, nothing is beneath my kids as far as, oh, this is silly. Why are we clapping it out? We're in 7th grade. Madison is a student who was in self-contained, but has been doing a lot more pushing lately. And Blair has done such a great job. I think maybe even if I were to replay the video, you can see that Blair has really done a great job sort of coaching and bringing Madison along. And I think that peer-to-peer safety, right, that peer-to-peer relationship building is helpful not only in the fluency process, but also in the it's okay to be wrong, let's learn this together process. And classrooms thrive when students are willing to do that and go there together. Just some components for fluency, right? We talk about accuracy, but please don't tell kids it's about reading fast. We're going to miss something, right? We've got rate, the appropriate pace, right? That also was talked about in the standard. But we also need to talk about expression. We need to talk about expression and that prosody to make sure that we're continuing to nail comprehension. It's that bridge that we were talking about. A few strategies. Aaron's talked, about some strategies: teacher modeling, choral reading, echo reading, the repeated reads. Again, this is what ANAT and Student Achievement Partners say, right? This daily for 10 to 15 minutes. But if you don't have that kind of time to dedicate, it could also be whole group. It could be small. Just start with your objective and doing a choral read of the objective, then an echo read of the objective, but let a student lead the echo read. Find some multi-syllable words and clap those out. Let's maybe do a little bit of vocabulary. What does this word mean? And even that 90 seconds is still more helpful than you never having done the echo read or the syllabicating. And then do just a brief application and wrap up for questions.
17 others
Attempted to vote,
but
failed a literacy test, which meant that they were denied this right. On December 4th, just after returning to her hometown, she went to the courthouse in Indianola.
Okay, just a small example, right, of what the choral read looks like. Just going to kind of, the echo read looks like. It's very easy to do and low leverage to implement in class. Going to flash forward here a little bit.
You have to annotate this, but think about where you are going to scoop some words together all in one breath. Notice the punctuation marks and give your partner feedback on how they are reading. Prosody, the emotional comprehension, pacing, how fast, how slow they're going.
And just for some context, this was Black History Month, so students were talking about Fannie Lou Hamer, I believe, because I was choosing somebody different each week to focus on their story.
Accuracy. Did we kind of stutter over a word? And if so, that's okay. You just go back to the last slide and this. So that's a 4-point boost for some folks.
Just after returning to her hometown, she went to the courthouse in Indianola to take the test, but failed and was turned away. Hammond told the registrar.
But failed and was turned away. Hamer told the registrar, "You'll see me every 30 days till I..."
Okay, not too shabby. And we'll end with this. If you just are looking for a weekly routine to use in your classroom, this is what it could be. I'll sort of end here, but this will be in the slides that get shared out, right? We can do a little bit of modeling and choral reading. Make sure that we can, keep that passage. You can also write and have your kids write it. I think that's a good thing to do. Let's do some echo reading. Right? I love having students record their voices on Vocaroo, VOCAROO.com, Vocaroo.com. It's a free website. Students can record themselves. They can copy the link, and my school uses Clever. They can send me that link, and I can give them feedback on their fluency via Vocaroo. There might be more advanced sites, but I really enjoy Vocaroo. It's free, it's fast, it's easy, and it's part of our fluency routine for kids to record themselves. Sometimes it's just their voice. I can give them feedback, send it to me on Clever, bada boom, bada bang. Because somebody said, hey, let's do accents today. We've got repeated reading aloud and self-reflection, and I love Fluency Friday. Students usually get up and perform whatever we've been working on Monday through Thursday, including those annotations. That's all I've got. You've been a great audience. I will see you after the show.
So, folks, this is your opportunity. If you have any questions for Kier, we don't get this opportunity often. And Aaron as well. Aaron, you're back. Did you leave us?
Spectrum pushed me out. Let's make that very clear. It was more existential.
Yeah. Kier, I have to tell you, well, first and foremost, the Spider-Man poster, killer.
Oh, yeah, there's a whole superhero corner in the classroom.
You mentioned, but when those kids were reading one of the first couple of videos, the prosody and the rhythm, like I kid you not, I was melting here in Connecticut. It was their voices were truly beautiful. It was
Yeah.
it was really moving for me.
It is really cool. It's the fate, the sandstorm quote is really one of my favorites, especially when kids really get into that. And then they get to the end of that quote and they realize, oh my goodness, the sandstorm is you. And it completely changes the trajectory of how they read that quote and sort of giving each other grace because we've all got our sandstorms that we're working through. It's great because it's an extended metaphor. It's a lovely quote.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Someone asked if you would be willing to, or have you already shared your annotation symbols?
I have not, but I could. I could easily make some tweaks just so that they're a little more obvious. If you pause the video, one of the videos, you can clearly see them, and if you're able to zoom in, but I can make them more apparent before the slides are sent out.
All right.
I'm
Anything
curious.
else?
I'm jumping in. I know it's almost 8, but Aaron, can you talk a little bit about where your scripts come from?
Largely speaking, they're generative AI. And so I won't bore people with the process, but largely speaking, remember, I want something they can read 2 or 3 times a day. I think that was a chat question. So it's rigged to be, my prompts typically are 450 to 550 words, depending on the grade level. Let's say Lexile 800. I want 4 parts. Generative AI is really good about making sure if I have a word count, every part says the exact same number of words. So there is no part which kids read more or read less. And then that final part, which I think is what makes this a little bit different than most of the scripts that I've seen as a gen ed teacher, is the idea that I'm always doing 2 things or maybe 3 or 4 things at once. And one thing I probably should have touched on, I built a bunch of scripts around the language standards because one of the great paradoxes in education, which is somehow we're supposed to be, the general gist of which is how do we continue moving forward with our standards while plugging holes simultaneously? And so those scripts have been able to do those for me. So I can reintroduce things like subject and predicates or basic parts of speeches or basic parts of speech. So we're working on prosody, we're working on fluency, but we're also making sure we're attending to grade to standards that kids may not have secured in K3.
Great. All right. I'm feeling like that might be a wrap. Huge thanks and appreciation, Kier and Aaron. It was I could actually keep listening and I could stay on, but people always say that we're the 9 to 3 summers off crowd. Yeah, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Dedication never ends. So thank you everybody so much, but particularly thank you, Kier and Aaron, and thank you, Aaron's internet, for staying like just so long.